It begins with fear. The text does not disguise this. It does not soften it. It does not correct it. When Moses is called, he does not step forward. He hesitates. He resists. He lists reasons why he should not be chosen. The narrative records this without judgment. And then it does something unusual. It allows silence to remain. Because Moses is not being prepared to inspire. He is being prepared to carry weight. Fear, in this story, is not treated as weakness. It is treated as awareness. Moses has already lived close to power. He has watched authority operate from the inside. He has seen how systems harden. He has seen order become cruelty. So when he is asked to speak on behalf of something absolute, he hesitates, not because he doubts the call, but because he understands its cost. Once law enters the world, innocence ends. Once structure exists, someone must enforce it. Moses understands something early that the text never explains directly. Leadership does not elevate. It exposes. It places a human being between command and chaos, between law and survival. Once that position is taken, there is no neutrality left. Every decision becomes weight. Every delay becomes dangerous. Fear follows naturally, not because Moses lacks courage, but because he understands permanence. Law, once spoken, cannot be withdrawn. Long before Moses leads anyone, the text shapes him through displacement. He belongs fully to neither world that raised him. He learns power without owning it. He learns suffering without growing inside it. Exile forms him. Isolation tempers him. Leadership here does not rise from confidence. It rises from restraint. Moses is not trained to dominate. He is trained to endure. The burning bush is not a moment of affirmation. There is no celebration, no reassurance, no explanation of why Moses was chosen. Only instruction. The moment is restrained, contained. Moses does not leave affirmed. He leaves assigned. This is not a calling designed to inspire confidence. It is a calling designed to establish responsibility. Even the name revealed, I am, is not explained. It is not softened. It is not interpreted. It is simply given. The silence implies something unsettling. Moses is not meant to fully understand what he carries. He is meant to bear it. From this point on, Moses slowly disappears as an individual. He becomes function, voice of law, mediator, bearer of command. The narrative shifts. Personal hesitation fades. Legal language expands. Moses is no longer asked what he feels. He is asked what must be done. Leadership absorbs identity. The people argue. Moses listens. The people panic. Moses absorbs. The people complain. Moses stands between fear and collapse. Leadership isolates him. The text records disputes, laws, judgments, but very little inner reflection. When Moses strikes the rock, the text does not accuse him of disbelief. It suggests exhaustion, pressure, a moment where restraint breaks under weight. His failure is administrative, not moral. That matters. He does not reject the divine. He momentarily abandons the posture required to carry it. The consequence is not dramatic. It is quiet. Moses will not enter the land. The text does not explain why. It does not justify it. It does not soften it. It simply states it and moves on. Centuries later, Jesus speaks into a world Moses built. Not against it, within it. Law already exists. Covenant already exists. Structure already exists. Fulfillment presupposes foundation. Moses establishes boundaries. Jesus speaks within them. The text never resolves Moses' fear. It does not reward it. It does not condemn it. It carries it forward. Perhaps fear is not the enemy of faith. Perhaps it is what prevents leadership from becoming reckless. The story does not answer this. It leaves the question open. Moses explains the world Jesus speaks into. Moses stands at the intersection of past and future. As the weight of leadership begins to settle upon him, his life was once simple, but now he is called to carry the weight of a nation, burdened by promises, laws, and divine command. In the solitude of the wilderness, Moses finds himself standing before God, not in glory or strength, but in vulnerability. A leader is not formed in moments of certainty, but in moments of doubt. Moses, now in his old age, has seen the rise and fall of rulers, the power of kings, and the fleeting nature of human authority. Yet, he is called to stand apart, to lead not with armies or wealth, but with words. The law he carries is not his own creation, but a divine prescription for a fractured people. It is a burden that few can understand, a burden that does not seek validation, but obedience. As Moses walks, his steps echo the footsteps of his forefathers, those who walked in the same wilderness, but who never reached their promised rest. Each footstep becomes a reminder of what lies ahead. The mountains before him are like the laws he carries, immovable, ancient, silent. His path, like the people he leads, is steeped in history, marked by failures and the search for redemption. But redemption comes at a price. There are no simple solutions in the wilderness. Moses' authority comes not from the sword, but from the weight of the tablets he holds. Stone, unyielding, carrying the will of God. Each word engraved on the stone, each commandment, each law. It is a promise that demands fulfillment. The silence of the wilderness is deafening, but the law Moses carries speaks loudly. But there is another weight on Moses, the weight of human doubt. The people, unable to see the future, question the wisdom of a God they cannot touch, cannot see. Moses is not merely a leader. He is an intermediary, someone who speaks the law, but bears the burden of misunderstanding. Even his closest companions doubt. His brother, Aaron, his sister, Miriam, they challenge him, not out of malice, but from their own desire for authority. Moses stands before them, and, for the first time, he is not just the man who will lead them into the promised land. He is the man who will be the judge, not just of the people, but of his own kin. Their rebellion does not come as a surprise, but it does shake him. For leadership, even in its quietest moments, is a lonely task. Moses turns to God for answers, but the silence answers only with his responsibility. The law, as it stands, is not a gift to Moses. It is a challenge. In it, there are no immediate rewards, only obedience. Yet in this moment of obedience, Moses begins to realize something. The law is not his burden alone. It is a collective weight that will hold the people together, and through it, they will find their identity, their unity. Moses stands in a place of profound silence, where his actions are far more than his own. They speak of the future. The law itself, though written in stone, is not final. It is a beginning, not an end. It is a blueprint, a vision of what the people can become, if they are willing to follow. The wilderness will test them. The law will be their guide. But Moses is not the law. He is the one who carries it. Moses will not enter the promised land, but that is not the end of his journey. His legacy will be in the law he delivered, and in the people who will carry it forward. He is the one who stands between the wilderness and the promise. The law Moses gave was not perfect, but it was his offering, his responsibility to the future. He was not the final answer, but he was the answer for his time. When Jesus speaks into this world, he speaks to the law Moses laid down. He does not replace it, but fulfills it. This is not a contradiction. It is a continuation. As Moses gazes into the wilderness, he sees not an end, but a transition. The law he holds is not meant to bind, but to liberate. The silence around him is not absence. It is waiting. The people will need time to understand the weight of what they carry. The burden of leadership is not to lead, but to prepare others to lead. Moses has done that. The rest is out of his hands. In the end, Moses does not fail. He simply gives the people a foundation, and they will build upon it. Not perfectly, but faithfully. The silence of Moses' journey speaks louder than the laws he delivers. It is not about what is said, but what is understood in the silence between the words. The law speaks, but silence teaches. Moses did not lead by his will alone. He was led by command. The people saw the fire on the mountain, the smoke, the thunder. But Moses knew that the true test was not in the spectacle. It was in obedience. Obedience to something greater than himself, something beyond comprehension. The law was not merely to govern actions, but to direct the heart. The law Moses carried was not about maintaining order alone. It was about cultivating a new life, a life that could emerge from the chaos of bondage, a life that would define a people, not just for the generations to come, but for their own hearts. Yet obedience is not a simple task. It is a continual choice, made in silence, made in struggle. Obedience requires surrender. The people did not understand Moses' silence. They wanted answers, immediate and clear. They wanted certainty. But Moses had learned long ago that certainty was not given. It was forged. He stood between them and the mountain, not as one with the answers, but as one who was learning to obey. The law was not a weapon. It was a call to transformation. And so Moses, in his quiet obedience, began to teach the people, not through speeches, not through grand gestures, but through his actions. Each moment he followed the law was a lesson in itself. Each step toward the mountain, each movement within the camp, spoke louder than words. The law was not just for the people. It was for Moses too. Moses' obedience, though quiet, was his strength, and it was not immediate. This understanding, it was earned over time, in the solitude of the wilderness, in moments of silence between the laws. The law did not just mark a people. It formed them. It gave them something to hold on to, in a world that had left them abandoned. But every law came with its price. Moses was not unaware of the cost. The people complained. They grew restless in the waiting. But Moses understood that the true cost was not in the people's rejection of the law, but in his own growing sense of weariness. Obedience, after all, requires endurance, not for a day, but for years. And in those years, Moses would face his greatest challenge, not from without, but from within. Moses stood between God and the people, and it was a task that would break him. The law, which was meant to bring freedom, would become a burden, not just to the people, but to Moses as well. Each judgment, each command, each instruction from the mountain weighed heavier on him. He knew it was necessary, but the cost was taking its toll. In the end, Moses' silence was his strength. The weight of the law would carry him, but only through the quiet obedience that would not ask for praise. And it was in this silence, in this place of quiet submission to a higher purpose, that Moses' true leadership began. For leadership is not in command. It is in submission. Submission to the law. Submission to God. Submission to what must be done. Moses does not enter the promised land, but that is not the end of his journey. He is the one who marks the way, but he will not walk it himself. The law he carried was not his to complete. It was his to pass on, and pass it on he did. Moses leaves the wilderness not as a conqueror, but as a guide. The people will walk forward, but they will walk with the law he gave them. He stands as a bridge between two worlds, the wilderness that shaped them and the land that calls them. But the land is not his. Jesus speaks into this world, into the law Moses laid down. But Jesus does not replace it. He fulfills it. The law is not discarded. It is not invalidated. It is transformed, filled with new meaning. And Jesus, in his silence, becomes the fulfillment of Moses' labor. Moses is not forgotten. His journey continues in the people who walk after him. He is not the end, but the beginning. The law will carry them forward, but only if they walk in obedience. And even in their failures, even in their rebellion, the law remains, waiting for them to return. There is a moment in Moses' story that is rarely lingered on, a moment with no miracles, no signs, no devain spectacle, only judgment. The text does not rush through it. Neither should we. Moses is no longer standing before Pharaoh. He is no longer climbing the mountain. He is listening, and what he hears is not instruction, but consequence. Leadership in the Mosaic world is not measured by success. It is measured by responsibility. Moses is not free to act as he wishes. Every word carries weight. Every decision ripples outward. The law he delivers does not spare him. The text is quiet about this, but the silence is intentional. Moses is subject to the law. He brings down the mountain. The people complain. They always do. Water is scarce. The desert presses in. Fear resurfaces. And Moses, tired and burdened, acts not in rebellion, but in impatience. He strikes the rock. Water flows. The miracle remains. But something else breaks. The text does not dramatize the moment. It does not raise its voice. It simply records the result. Moses will not enter the land. No explanation is offered. That feels proportionate, and that discomfort is deliberate. This is not a story about fairness. It is a story about order, about restraint, about the cost of authority. This is where many readers struggle. Why such severity? Why such finality? The tradition does not answer directly. It allows the tension to remain. Moses is not punished as a criminal. He is corrected as a leader. The law cannot appear flexible in the hands of the one who delivers it. If Moses is exempt, the covenant collapses. The silence here is instructive. Moses does not argue. He does not bargain. He does not resist. He continues. He leads. He teaches. He prepares others to enter what he himself will not touch. This is not tragedy. It is discipline. This moment reshapes the entire narrative. The covenant is not built on charisma. It is built on obedience. Even the greatest figure remains beneath the law. Moses becomes the embodiment of restraint, the leader who stops short, the guide who does not arrive. The law is preserved because he does not cross. Later traditions will struggle with this. Some soften it, others explain it away, but the text does not. It allows Moses to remain unfinished. That incompleteness is not failure. It is structure, a story deliberately left open. This is where continuity begins. Not replacement, not correction, continuation. Jesus does not undo Moses. He speaks into the world Moses shaped, a world governed by law, by consequence, by restraint. Without Moses stopping short, there is no space for fulfillment. The silence of Moses creates the conditions for speech later. The law defines the limits. Later voices explore what happens within them. But the foundation remains unchanged. Moses does not fail. He completes his role by knowing when to stop. The text closes Moses' story without spectacle, no final speech, no dramatic ascent, only distance. He sees the land. He does not enter it, and the story moves on because it must. Narration block 12. This silence is not absence. It is design. The law remains intact because the lawgiver obeyed it, and that obedience, quiet and unresolved, becomes the most enduring act of Moses' life. Moses explains the world Jesus speaks into.